So for those of you who don't know me, my name's Tara Castle and I'm the CEO of Queensland Gives. And firstly, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands that we're meeting on today, the Yagara and Turrbal people in Brisbane City. And I'd like to acknowledge the elders past, present and emerging. I'd also like to thank Elia for your part in gathering all of the sports together. It's pretty exciting to have so many sports represented here. And I guess just to let you know how this has come about is Queensland Community Foundation is Queensland's only statewide charitable trust and community foundation. And we've been going for 30 years next year. We've got $170 million under trust and we output around $7 million per year to around 300 Queensland charities. So it's a pretty incredible vehicle for doing good in Queensland and it's a great honour to have this role. And what I have found is I'm getting increased inquiries from all of the sports, from Queensland Rugby League, from tennis, from cricket, and you're all asking me very, very similar questions about philanthropy, about funding, about how you can establish a foundation to achieve goals around First Nations communities and all ability sports and women. So I am not the subject matter expert on this, and as you all know, or some of you might know, we do have brand new legislation for DGR1 tax deductibility charitable giving. So we do have Ian Bird with us today, who's going to, he is the subject matter expert in this area. He's the CEO of Community Foundations Australia, the peak body representing community foundations, and it's pretty exciting, this new legislation, and it not to be too cliche, it is a bit of a game changer for all of us, and including the community foundation crew. But I thought it just might be super helpful for Ian if we just spend a couple of minutes each and we say who we are, what our role is. Do you have a foundation? Do you use ASF already as your DGR1 gateway? And then maybe the sport. Is there something else, Ian, that you thought might be helpful to know about who's in the room?
Yeah, if there's any other third-party fund host that you work with.
Okay, so I'm going to go around on my screen of who I can see. So I might start with you, Rebecca. You're at the top, if that's okay.
Sure, Rebecca Randazzo, Chief Executive at Hockey Queensland. We don't have a foundation, and I think we have done some things in the past with the Sports Foundation, so that's what I know.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Graham?
Graham Maher, CFO at Queensland Reds and Queensland Rugby Union. I'm actually here on behalf of one of our other colleagues, Ben Thurlow, who is our foundation lead and manager. We've had a foundation for about 5.5 years through the ASF, and we're averaging about 7 figures a year in terms of gifting to rugby in Queensland. So about 6 million over the last 5.5 years, and exclusively through ASF.
Thank you so much, Graham. Andrew?
Hey, Andrew Herbert. I'm the GM of Finance and Shared Services at Netball Queensland. We don't have a dedicated foundation, but we do have a couple of social programs which we accept donations for via ASF.
Thank you very much. Tiani?
Hi, I'm Tiani Van Haren. I actually work for the Department of Sport, Racing, Olympic and Paralympic Games. So I'm just here, I guess, as a bit of a wallflower, because we're obviously always interested in how we can support sport, achieve its goals.
Thank you, Tiani. Dan?
Hi, everyone. My name's Dan Kanaib. So I work for Tennis Australia's charity arm, which is the Australian Tennis Foundation, with a charity for AO. We do have DGR status for our disadvantaged kids program using tennis as a pathways, but we also use ASF for some of our elite program donations as well.
Okay, thank you so much. So I've got two different orders on my big screen and little screen. We all know Nat, but Nat, give us your little summary.
Thanks, Ian. I'm the Aussie Athlete Fund, and we auspice through the ASF for all of our charitable, all of our donation collecting. And we look after the athlete at the end of the food chain, the one that's running around we're trying to get direct athlete support between games and keep them on the field, help the families.
Thank you so much, Nat. Jen?
Hi, everyone. I apologise for my voice. I'm recovering from losing it, so I don't usually sound this ridiculous. I am the General Manager of the Maroons Foundation at Queensland Rugby League. We have existed kind of in a relaunched format for about 18 months. But Graham, who was formerly with us, will know that we existed through the ASF previously, but we have formed a new department that has a really heavy focus on this for the business moving forward, and we auspice through the ASF.
Yeah, thank you. And Trent?
Yeah, so Trent Van Hout, I work at Queensland Cricket. We have a foundation set up in partnership with ASF as well.
Okay, excellent. And then we've got three of the other Queensland Gives team. We have Shauna in the room with me. I've got Louis and Kathy both on the call as well. But I think I've covered off all of the sports that are online. Dylan, did you want to introduce yourself as well?
Thanks, Tara. Just briefly, I'm on the team with Ian at Community Foundations Australia, joining from Wajaknung over here in Fremantle, and had a little bit to do with sport and philanthropy in the past.
Okay, well, I think I've caught everyone. Yeah, this is your chance now if I've missed you.
Tara, just to make it confusing, apologies for Matt Richards from Tennis Queensland, but Tennis Queensland also has a Mal Anderson Foundation that we have funding go into to help our regional kids through the Australian Sports Foundation as well, which is completely different to what Dan does at Tennis Australia. However, with Dan now in the role, just trying to align better and have that leadership from a national perspective, because as a state, I wouldn't say we've probably given it the time that it should have.
Yeah. And Alia, I think you should just introduce yourself as well to the group in one or more of your hats that you have, and the reason possibly that we're all here.
I see Tiani laughing in my corner. I'm pretty sure I've met most of you or been at least in the same room as you. Elliot Hill, if I haven't met you, my day job is for Tennis Australia as head of local government and industry partnerships. However, spent about 15 years at Tennis Queensland in many different seats, from a development officer all the way through to their acting CEO. Spent some time with Tiani in the department, and then got to know Nat and Tara and the rest of Brisbane who wants to make it better with sport, and love bringing people together. So you've all been across my journey somehow, some way, and I think you've all been given to Tara in some capacity, Trent starting with yourself, and really just saw that sport were looking for some help in this space. So apologies for dobbing you all in, but there's something here for us that I know Tara can help us unlock. So I really appreciate everyone coming together, and hopefully through the leadership that everyone has with Queensland sport here, we can make a difference before the other states come and get it.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, everyone. And now I'd like to hand over to Ian Bird, CEO of Community Foundations Australia, expert on all things community charity, and also former Olympian in hockey is his field, 2 times Olympian actually. So over to you, Ian.
Yeah, thanks, Tara. Both Dylan and I are here out of the Passion Project for sure. Dylan was a football player for the Dockers and the High Point with the North Melbourne. So I just want to do 2 things quickly, and then share a little more information, and then I actually just want to hear a little bit about your needs. Okay, so this is going to be a 2-way thing. And so first principles, the new charitable regime, like that's called the Community Charities, which is about creating a network of community foundations for Australia. It's not going to replace the ASF. Okay, so just we're all going to need the ASF, including the community foundations. So it's not replacing that for sure. It's not going to replace your foundations and your bespoke strategies, but it is going to be a new tool in the toolkit for sure. Okay, so think of it as you got you want a full suite of philanthropic tools. There's now a new one, and I come from Canada, and I can just paint the picture of what's about to happen in Australia over the next decade, and it will be really helpful if the sports system is on the journey, and it will unlock resources. So Australia, the second thing is Australia's community foundation network is still relatively young. There's 48 right now. When you when you look at it through one slice, there's a little more than that, but let's just call it there's 48. There's about $1 billion capitalized across that network of 48. There's something like $100 million being moved every year, but that is also growing. The fund itself is growing exponentially. So the first year I got here 3 years ago, it grew by 50 million. Last year it grew by 100 million. And this is before the reforms. So it's going to keep growing. And to give you a sense, in Canada, there's 7 times as many community foundations, and it's now capitalized at $13 billion. And what that means is those foundations all across Canada are putting out something like $1.3 billion a year into their communities. And Australia will be the same. Okay, it'll take about 10, 15 years, but it's the same charitable regime, the same tax deductibility. We see the same patterns in private giving in Australia as we saw in Canada. But Australia, until just a few weeks ago, didn't have a community system. The government had just not gotten around to it. And they've just done that. Over the last 2 years, they've put this new system in place. And so we start to see this escalation, this growth of community-led philanthropy. And so, you know, Tara leads one of the largest in the country, and Queensland, frankly, is going to end up with the best community foundation infrastructure in the world. It's going to have Queensland Gives, Queensland Community Foundation, a network of community foundations and Indigenous-led funds, very robust infrastructure. Between Victoria and Queensland, the most robust infrastructure. So, but to sort of set your expectations right, we're talking to you right at the very beginning of a new system rolling out. Okay, and it will be shaped by the creativity that is exercised between like all of you and the community foundations. So for instance, one of the first community foundations to get started under the new system is in the inner north of Melbourne. They already have a fund set up with the Fitzroy Football Club. The Fitzroy Football Club is growing its endowment, it's growing its assets, and they have a whole strategy of how that's going to back the community in all sorts of different ways. And so if you were thinking down the track about the growing network of community foundations, building your relationships and the kind of fund structure to facilitate long-term grant making into where your sport intersects with community, super strategic. And in Canada, there were, like in British Columbia, where I come from, every single one of we call them provinces, but every single one of the provincial sport organizations has a fund at the province-wide community foundation. It's called the Vancouver Foundation. It's the largest community foundation in the country. Every single one. Rugby, ice hockey, netball, handball, you name it, they all have a fund there, and it's growing and benefiting from that infrastructure, and the grant making is happening into their sport and their community. So you don't have to figure it all out today. You're not going to wake up tomorrow and start designing your community foundation strategy, because You're going to think about it. You're going to look overall at where's the role of philanthropy in your sport. And in about a month, I'm going to be in Brisbane, and we could talk again then. And then in September, I'm going to be back again, and we can do anything you want in between virtually. So it's not about having it all figured out today. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about the new system so you understand it a little better, and then questions. What doesn't make sense or what's on your mind, and then Dylan and I will be able to follow up and respond if we don't have an answer today. So some things about the new system are really interesting because they facilitate options that are around community infrastructure that it has been difficult in the old community-based DGR system. And it's going to crowd in other kinds of philanthropic partners because private ancillary funds, which is, a $30 billion industry in Australia, they now have to expend more money per year by an order of 1 or 2% more, which is a ton of money. And they need to move that money. By government regulation now, they have to move more money. And they are looking to place that money into the new community regime. And community infrastructure will be one of the go-tos. So if you think about what that means for your sport and the capacities, really significant. The second space is going to be obviously around disadvantage or around those that are in some ways marginalized. And the human side of this is real. So athletes, coaches, officials, the people side of it, where there's been marginalization, there's an opportunity to use the new system. You won't be able to fund, initiatives so that, athletes can jump higher or run faster directly, like that sport for sport's sake is the space where it will still reside with the ASF. But anything that's grappling with inequities, marginalization, progressive parts of human development, young people acquiring skills, Nat, we had that back and forth about the power of sport as an enabler of capabilities and competencies. And insofar as we have that part of the development pathway in your program design, there's going to be a lot of flexibility to support this more than before. And then there's other intersections. I don't think we have any like rowing or canoe, kayak or anything like that, but any of the sports that also have an orientation of the natural environment, there's going to be space there around how the sport interacts and protects and safeguards or requirements for the natural environment to be a good operating environment for the athletes and their programs. There'll be a set of other things. We're just still working with Treasury on the interpretation of all the categories, and you're going to end up with your toolkit. Come April or at least September, you'll be able to walk it back inside your organization and say the new regime is this. Here are the kinds of things that it supports. Here's what's out of bounds. Not everything will be allowed, and then you can integrate that with your strategy. Tara, and last thing I'll say is Tara and I had what for me was one of my best meetings in Australia the past 3 years with Ben Eichen with the Maroons, and that meeting revealed to me the extent to which sport, probably stronger than in Canada, is part of the social fabric here, just how much there's a role that sports playing that goes beyond the field of play and the leadership that's provided. It's not all sport for development. Some of it's very much still in creating pathways into sport for those that may not have the same access as others. But I think there's going to be an appetite in the foundation sector, in community foundation sector, to be more and more aligned, more in a partnership, more like crafting solutions together than just looking at the transaction of donor dollars in and granting dollars out. It's like, what are the strategic partnerships where by doing what we do and doing what you do, there's a better outcome for Australians and their communities. And then what that means for your sports brand or your sports reputation or just your sports accessibility, inclusion, resilience, whatever those outcomes are. So it's and just the fact that it's a brand new thing means it can very much be shaped. It's not a rules-based structure. The government quite intentionally created something that communities could shape on the basis of their uniqueness, understanding that, you know, a small community in rural Queensland is dealing with things that are very different than a Gold Coast neighborhood. You know, they really are trying to have it be adaptable for the unique environments that you're operating in. So for me, it would be good, if you have any questions where I can be more clear. If there's any information you want, just name it. And if we have it, we'll share it. But more than likely, we're going to be following up and providing you with some, you know, really, information that you can really rely on. And also, if there's opportunities that you want to identify for us to be able to come and meet you on your terms, you know, your timelines or at your events or things that you've got going, then just identify those, and then Dylan and I can get the right people there to continue the conversation. So let me just stop there. See, is there anything that's immediately coming to mind or questions you have, or where Dylan and I can help clarify the opportunity for you? Jennifer.
At the risk of potentially sounding ignorant, my question is around, you noted that Treasury is still working through the interpretations. In talking about kind of this future state with our board, there seems to be a lot of uncertainty from them around kind of being first to market in this space. And I just wondered kind of why you said sort of September is, my board would love for me to present to them someone else's version of the interpretations so that they can feel comfortable. Is sort of where I'm wondering.
The biggest thing is all the community foundations, the language that's used in the legislation says, and this is different than all the other DGR related systems, so it's new for everyone. The legislation says that you will demonstrate that there's an alignment with the purposes of a DGR category. Okay, and that the two key words are alignment and purposes. So alignment doesn't mean you're going to find a DGR1 or a DGR2 entity and choose the entity and check the box. That's the old system. And it didn't work at the community level for all sorts of reasons, and was the biggest inhibitor to community foundation development. Otherwise, Australia would already be like Canada. We'd have hundreds of foundations and the same scale. So they did the right thing. They said demonstrate at the community level and that's a due diligence process that's documented. So right now, all the community foundations are making their first grants under this regime, and they're doing that, Jennifer. They're doing this is what the alignment is, this is what the expressed purpose is, this is what we're funding. And in some cases, what they're allowed to do, unlike the ancillary funds, is they can actually undertake the activity directly. And that's to handle small towns, frankly. It's small towns where there's actually nowhere to move the money. Money's not going to leave the community foundation. It's going to actually be applied to the activity itself. And it's really smart. It was one of the most important things we held on to when the whole regime was going through consultation. So let's say if we just said we pick you up again in September, Jennifer, by then we'll have all these use cases from across the country of this is a grant that was made, here's the due diligence that was undertaken, here's the documentation required, and we're past that first mover scenario that, you know, naturally your board would say, do we want to be first out of the gates or not? And they'll do that with local partners, like the example of Inner North and Fitzroy's Footy Club. They've been together on a bunch of different things for years, and this is just the next thing up for them. So there's nothing wrong with like being strategic and like in letting the readiness happen, because I mean we're literally talking, right? The community foundations that were endorsed, declared by the minister, it was like 2 weeks ago. It's not like it was years ago or months ago. It's just happened, and Tara's just jumped right on top of things as she does. So that's, yeah, great question. Sense. Yeah. The one thing about going early that Dylan, I would say, is you actually in the system, it's more like going to be more like the common law, where the things we do in the system will create the boundaries, the creativity that's in the system, because ultimately the tax office will go like, oh yeah, look at that, you know, right, there's the hockey club, you know, and they're breaking down cross-cultural barriers within a community and building social cohesion, you know, and that's an aligned purpose. And so we're really pleased to see that that hockey program's rolling out. That's the kind of thing that they wouldn't have imagined in the old system, because they would have been looking for a DGR entity rather than benefiting from the community's know-how or the sport club's know-how about how they operate in a community. So by being in early, even if you just come in early and prototype or test or run a few pilots that are sort of lower risk, it just allows you to kind of get into the system and see how it works. Maybe with just picking one of the community foundations to work with and use that as an easy way in before you're adopting a full, you know, strategic approach. Rebecca.
Just wondering if there's been any discussion around funding terms in terms of length of funding of programs, if they're kind of short project-based versus things that might align with an organisation's 3-year strategy, for example.
I think probably three things there. One would be, there's been a lot of talk about asset development. So not just like this was one of the strategic approaches taking in Canada. So rather than taking a program and saying, how do we just move the money to back the program, let's say over multiple years, actually, yes, how do we do that? But also, how do we build a financial asset around the program? And then that creates a recurring form of revenue, right? If you've got $1 million under this regime, that's going to produce $50,000 every year forever. Like that's and so this getting out of the starvation cycle of, you know, we only operate programming when we've got money. That's been a big thing that's shifted in the Canadian environment. You just have all those, you know, I think it's 54 sports in British Columbia. They all have endowed funds at the Vancouver Foundation, the yield from which is producing revenue for them for a variety of things that they've chosen. And they have an aggregated investment infrastructure that's, you know, creating the kind of returns that you'd see at Queensland Community Foundation, right? Really high performing financial returns. So that's one. It's on the asset side, the balance sheet side, building a fund, and then working with their community foundation to get higher performance. Yeah, and I'm not sure if ACF provides that kind of infrastructure. If they do, then obviously that's an option for you as well. The one thing with those funds is they can also be localized. So ice hockey, I think, you know, is Canada's kind of like heart and soul sport. And so in that case, every single community foundation has their local ice hockey fund in British Columbia. So you get this expanded effect, right? So a small town, Nanaimo, Fort St. John, Salt Spring Island, right? Whistler, like they've all got their various sport funds, and they themselves are producing local capacity for those needs. Community foundations themselves, the large ones contemplate multi-year. Most of the small ones, it's single-year stuff, Rebecca. So if you're engaged with Greater Melbourne, they're doing, you know, long-term types of things as the largest community foundation. Budrum, actually Sunshine Coast, little longer term, but if you're with NUSA, it's project-based funding as an example. And then the last thing is just there's a pivot towards supporting operating capability, not just funding, projects and outputs. And we're working with the tax office to make that a premium, so that we're not always just out there picking and choosing which project is good this year. It's actually backing the kind of the entity itself for its own purposes. So those are a few patterns. Yeah.
Yeah,
Nat.
Ian.
Yeah.
That's good to hear that they're backing the operational part as well. But if you use that example of the Vancouver Foundation and community like Queensland Gives, and does it change anything? And Tara might be able to answer too. Does it change anything with how you run Queensland Gives? And if like, how do we get the money in and out through there versus, currently my understanding is that it has to be, it's a balance sheet opportunity at Queensland Gives versus a facilitation.
Yeah, it's slightly different. Like that Queensland Community Foundation, Queensland Gives is still like going to go through the transition. So it would be easier if we just pick a different one, Nat. The money that can be endowed, which is like create the asset, invest the asset, the returns are used, right? That's one mechanism. The second mechanism would be called flow through. So donors can put the money in and then the money keeps on moving in the same timeline, right? The same fiscal year, and it gets into community straight away. And the community foundations on average across the country, it's like about 4 times the amount of money flows through is in the Canadian environment. The Canadians are more likely to say, put this in the savings account, we'll work off of the earnings and we have this long-term thing. Us Aussies are more likely to say, yeah, we'll do some of that, but really, 4 times the amount, so it's a lot more. We're going to move money through. So we actually just looked at our numbers today, and we're moving $100 million out the door, and we're growing the asset base and the network by 100 million. And those numbers for a Canadian, they're really wacky. But it's more about getting money on the street and into community here in Australia.
And Nat, if I can answer your question about Queensland Community Foundation and Queensland Gives, we've got pretty high ambition and confidence to have both a legacy option through Queensland Community Foundation and a flow-through option through Queensland Gives, hopefully by mid-year, maybe by the end of the year, but we're pretty advanced in that to be able to. I met with the Treasurer last night and made it very clear to him by us having this new infrastructure for Queensland, we're really going to unlock a lot of new funding. So I think that the current government is motivated. We've got the plans in place and we've got the right connections to really transform the landscape in Queensland. So yeah, I just need a bit of time.
Right.
So it's pretty exciting.
Like you could, if you wanted to paint the most rosy picture, right? You've got endowed assets, and I'm thinking with the Olympics coming, Paralympics coming, and everything, right? Endowed assets at Queensland Community Foundation with QIC as an investment vehicle. It's just like it's best in class. And then you've got Queensland Gives with the flow through option that's able to facilitate, Queenslanders really giving in and through this system that I've just been describing. And then you just take all the sports and you've got funds held and flow through money moving across each of the community foundations. And the stuff that's statewide would obviously come with the Queensland infrastructure that Tara and the team are building. And then you could also localize things if you've got, real specific needs through the network of local community foundations, they'd be growing with you and your needs in Toowoomba or Cairns or whatever it might be.
We just need you to be talking then to the Brisbane 2032 platform I mean, there is supposed to be an $8 billion economic drop into Queensland due to the games, and yet not a cent is supposed to directly benefit the athlete directly. So $8 billion on those numbers, with all,
Yeah.
there should be able to, with 6.5 years to go, be able to be a benefit to the community out of that. I don't know that that's in the current thinking. So meetings with the chair and or the CEO would be great.
Okay, that's good coaching. Yeah, we'll pick that up. I mean, I'm from Vancouver, right? And Vancouver had a good go there in 2010, the Winter Olympics, and huge legacy, like huge community legacies. And you know, the Canadian athlete system's declined ever since then, but that was the 10 years after the games was the peak. Although our Paralympic curlers got the gold, you guys, so there's like it's a bit of rejoicing. Just
but it was also due to a private person setting up the CAN fund separately.
Yeah, Jane's. Yeah, yes and no. It's a bit of, there was a lot going on, but true. Jane's a legend. Yeah, fantastic. So yeah, she carried me through. The hockey players didn't get much of a look. Field hockey, that is. Other questions? Anything that's on your mind? Dylan, anything that you're thinking of that we've been chatting about that hasn't surfaced yet?
A couple of things. One is I had some hands-on experience helping out the Dockers with their foundation called the Purple Hands Foundation, and a few others. And part of the difficulty was identifying what in the old system, which of the DGR1 types they would choose. So like what's going to be the focus when can be such a broad focus from a sporting club point of view. So that's something that can now be overcome in this new system because of the broad remit of the community charity framework. And then the other one is around sort of the pooling of funds, which has happened in a really difficult way up until now. So that's just something else just to share with you, that there's, you know, we all probably know the difficulties of trying to gather funding around or from multiple sources, even for one particular thing, but also then for multiple things. So that just this new system speaks to the collaboration piece and the working together as either funders or recipients or both. Just much more permissive environment and encouraging environment to collaborate and work together. And so that's another wave of the interest that we're getting, is from groups of funders that have previously been unable to pull their funding together.
Yeah, that'll be a big one. The private ancillary funds in particular that I spoke about earlier, they previously were prohibited from contributing to the community foundations and as Dylan says, pooling. Like, so you could really create an attractive offering and then, you know, collaborate to get that, you know, scaled up funding in rather than just hunter-gatherer finding single donors at a time. And for the larger, like I think of tennis and the Maroons and some of that, like where there's commercialization, there's quite a bit that's going on where there'll be some pilot projects. I think it's the Bulldogs here working with Greater Melbourne Foundation. It's like, yeah, they're really big pilots happening around how to move the needle on social well-being in the communities that the Bulldogs are most active in. Scanlon Foundation and North Melbourne are really close, and they're doing some really interesting things around social cohesion and what that means for young people in the communities that they're most closely tied into. So I think, I mean, I'm sure we could do a lot by having a real deep dive on what are we learning in sport philanthropy, and tennis and yeah, from footy and rugby and yeah, soccer. There's so much there. So yeah, Ellie, your hand's up. Sorry, I missed that.
That's okay. It might be a Tiani question, or is it a Q's, but I'm not sure. I think it's great to have this call and get us all together to understand what opportunity could look like and to understand what did happen in Canada and what could be happening here, and appreciate I'm from a bigger sport. But yeah, just more your thoughts, Tiani, on have we gotten together through Q Sport on these types of platforms before? Are we looking to more? Just more your thoughts on how do we keep the conversation going, not all go to Tara and Ian individually. Is it something that sport does together to learn and then we do what we need to do individually but learn together? Or is this, okay, sport, off you go, and if this is right for you, stay in touch with Tara and Ian, etc. Just looking for your thoughts or just guidance from a holistic piece to make sure we don't walk away and that's kind of it. Or yeah, just some thoughts from your end to make sure the conversation continues so we all can benefit. It's not just if we're a big sport or not.
Yeah, I mean, I think the easy answer is that I do think Q Sport needs to lead a conversation with sport. When I speak with Chantel, she really wants to make sure that Q Sport is delivering for sport what they need. So if this is something that sports really do want to explore and kind of to, I can't remember who said it before, like not be the first out the gate, but learn together as you're building it through. Like, I think that's something that's really important. I'm more than happy to talk to her. I think she was invited here, but I also know that she's had a very big few days.
We'll follow your lead on that, right? We can do, if there's a common platform to sort of plug into, fantastic. If it's going with the early adopters and where there's readiness and proving some things out, and then let others kind of come as ready, that works well. I mean, it is true that we see Queensland as the place to start on this, and partly that's what I was saying earlier about what's happening with Tara's leadership, obviously with the games coming, and also just I think culturally, I think it's there's more flexibility, more innovation. It's just kind of a cultural fit. Yeah, breaking in Victoria, it's a conservative sort of trust has been around for a long time. There's sort of a way of being we'd have to change in order to kind of get on to what's next. And there's a bit more of a forward-looking mindset for us in the philanthropic sector. It's also a very joined up philanthropic sector. Like we can reach everyone all at once. We can collaborate more often. I come into town and there's a lot of just facilitation of the conversation. So it's more coherence in Queensland if we can tap into that. But it doesn't have to be. If you've got, if there's something happening, in a different part of the country through one of your national sport connections, we'd love to hear it. So
I'm mindful of time, and I think that we're potentially about to lose people by the minute. So I just wanted to do a quick, as Ian mentioned, he's here in Brisbane in May. So they might let me know if you think that
April, Tara. I'll be there April. Yeah, 2021 April. Yeah.
Yeah. So when he's here in person, if you think that it's worth to, check in again, meet up, and if that's too soon and it's still, there's not enough movement yet. I think he said he's back again in September because the Philanthropy Australia conference is coming to Brisbane for the very first time. It's never been held here before. It's a gathering of around 2,000 philanthropists from mostly Australia, but also Asia Pac and a couple of international guests. So there could be, and if you would like me to facilitate, we could try and get the group together again, potentially in real life, but I'd also encourage you to have a look at what the program offers there, because it might be something relevant in the program, and I'm happy to share that with everyone. But I'm happy at my team to be sort of the liaison. We can try and connect and keep this group connected, and perhaps we can all try and work it out together and learn it. And again, if there's resources or things that we're doing here at Queensland Community Foundation or through Queensland Gives that we can help, would be only very honoured to be part of your own sports philanthropy journey. So definitely stay in touch, and I'll try and share some of the details of everyone here today, but just reach out if you need anything to myself or anyone of the team. yeah, is there any parting words, Ian or Elia?
No, I just think to continue to look into the opportunity. Queensland Gives, I stumbled across with Nat, and very grateful that I did. But it might be a slower burn, but it's just another arm of our ecosystem that, for someone who's been in sport for a long time, probably didn't realise was there. And they're a huge support to sport. We just have to ask them.
Yeah, I just would echo that and would say, like, with each month, we'll just have more rigor and be able to share more, documentation and, like, here's the pathway and here's how you get involved or here's a place to start. So just we don't have to wait to September, right? If you just flag with us you want to get going, then you just come on the journey with us, and we can kind of try to line up around your priorities. So it's great. I can't believe how quickly everyone got together, and fantastic to do it. It's like gonna really catalyze some of our work more quickly. Just the fact you're so keen. So thank you to Tara for making it happen.
Well, thanks everyone for making the time, and I look forward to seeing you in real life soon. So and I'll share whatever resources I can, and I'll be back in touch. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone.